Hello, my name is Elyse, and I am your host of Morbid Outdoors. Now, this is just a little passion project for me because I love everything creepy, everything weird, everything morbid and macabre. And I've always loved this stuff ever since I was a kid. And so, part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast is to let my freak flag fly in a way. Um, I don't think there's anything shameful about liking weird stuff and liking creepy stuff, but if you were like me and you were growing up and you have always loved morbid stuff, morbid facts, morbid stories, I was told it was weird and I was weird and I shouldn't like those things and I shouldn't listen to those things or watch those things. And my family, and namely my parents, were like really creeped out that I, from a young age, loved weird stuff. I like loved learning about crimes and scary movies and I don't know. So I was always told growing up that like I shouldn't like that stuff and it's weird and something's wrong with me and like, oh my gosh, that means you're going to become like one of those like criminals and no. So part of the reason why I'm doing this is because it's just been a long interest of mine to learn about creepy things and this podcast isn't going to be all creepy. So, Morbid Outdoors is really going to focus on like missing persons, true crime outside in the wild, legends, myths, deaths, things like that. And I'm going to try and do it in the most respectful way while still telling the stories. And some of these actually are going to be like cautionary tales. So, this podcast is going to take the two things that I'm very passionate about, like all things creepy, weird, and morbid, and the outdoors, and put them together. It's something I could talk on for a long time because I love I love creepy stuff and I love the outdoors. And I'm like I'm not like a professional like hiker or anything like that, but I am originally from Arkansas. I grew up in Arkansas and I moved away in 2020 after I finished up graduate school. And I did travel healthcare for 3 years before I settled down in Utah with my husband and our dog. And I started being involved in the outdoors when I was about 16 years old. I mean, I grew up going to national parks on road trips with my family. Like every other summer, we went to like 1 to 5 national parks on a road trip. So I have a lot of experience with the national parks. And I also in college worked for the Boy Scouts of America at Philmont Scout Ranch in northern New Mexico. And if you're unfamiliar with Philmont Scout Ranch, it's basically a like summer camp for Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts to go and complete a trek. And that is basically backpacking in the wilderness with their crew. So I did a lot of backpacking that summer. I love to backpack. It's something that I haven't done in a while, but I'm hoping to get back into it now that I'm like at a stable place in Utah and I'm not traveling every 9 months. Um, and so, yeah, so that's just kind of why I decided to start this podcast. It'll be fun. It'll be me telling you guys stories. And part of the stories, I mean, the majority of the podcast is going to be learning about the history of the wildernesses that we're talking about, like the national parks, national rec areas, national forests, state parks, pretty much where our story takes place. I will be talking about the history, the landscape, fun facts. So it's really like a it's going to be a fun one to listen to if you want to learn more about our national parks. And who knows, you might get a trivia question about something we talked about, and you might win trivia night at your next bar trivia night. So I just am super excited to share these stories with you and to have you along for the ride. Now, if you know me, you know that podcasting is not my full-time job. I like to say I'm not a professional podcaster because I'm not. I just have a microphone and a computer. And that's pretty much what's going on. But I love to tell stories. I love to share information and I love to be weird. So we're going to talk about everything morbid in the outdoors. And if you have case suggestions, you can DM me on Instagram. And my handle on Instagram for this podcast is, oh, let me look it up. It's funny, I cannot even remember it. Morbid Outdoors Podcast. And then my email, if you want to email case suggestions, is morbidoutdoorspodcast@gmail.com. So same handle for Instagram and Gmail. So yes, if you have a case suggestion, please send it to me. There are so many cases that I've never heard of before, and I would love to use your case suggestions for episodes on this podcast. And if you know me in real life, this is going to be like real and raw podcast. And if you didn't know that I love everything creepy, yes, I do. My husband and I basically only watch scary movies. That's pretty much all we watch. Any horror film that has been made, we've seen. And any time there is a new horror or thriller movie come out in theaters, we are there on opening night. I could go on and talk about cinema and horror, the genre, forever. So, yes, this is where I'm just going to be myself, even though some people might find it weird. And I also am kind of doing this to, I don't know, like change the narrative and dispel like the thoughts that people who like weird stuff are weirdos. Like we're not creeps. I'm just like any other person. And I think a lot of times when I listen to true crime podcasts, I like you always hear like, "Oh, this guy was so creepy. He liked this stuff," or like blah blah blah. Just liking horror genre films, books, podcasts, creepy things doesn't make you a freak. It doesn't make you a freak. And so that's kind of why I'm doing this podcast. Like, this is for all my fellow weirdos who like creepy shit. Okay. So, because that's me. And I feel like that's part of me that I don't really talk about and advertise because people think it's weird. And like, we can be weirdos and it doesn't make us like creepy or like we're gonna become criminals or we're gonna be like kill someone. Like, no, you can like creepy weird stuff and be like, I mean, there's no such thing as normal, but you can be typical. So anyways, that's basically, I just wanted to introduce myself, and along with a lot of these episodes, I'll be kind of talking about personal stuff or experiences in said national parks. um like I said, I grew up going to national parks every 2 years. And in 2021 or 2022, my husband and I set a goal to visit 10 national parks together and that year, and we actually visited 11. And it's really fun. I love the great outdoors, and this podcast is for when the great outdoors aren't always great. So start tuning in soon. Follow the show. I'll be on Apple, like Spotify, all the places, and I would love to have your support and for you to listen with me and just be a weirdo with me. So, yeah, follow along, and I cannot wait to start releasing episodes for you all. And yeah, so thank you for your support. Like I said, I'm not a professional podcaster, but this is just something fun that I like to do, and I would love to share stories and hear stories from you guys. Seriously, if you have case suggestions, send them to me. So, anyways, stay weird out there, guys. I'm so excited to release these episodes to you. So, I will see you when I release my first episode.